they call me executive creative director, but I think that's too many words, so I just say creative director. So what I do, I joined the team about 3 years ago when they kind of reassembled a new team, and our focus was to work with the best partners and the best talent and connect them with the best characters to create the best games for the best fans. So part of my goal at Marvel Games is to do anything and everything I can to help collaborate with our partners and give them as much information or brainstorm with them or bounce ideas off or give any sort of guidance. I worked in Marvel both in marketing and as a writer and as an editor, and then now with Marvel Games for about 20 years. So I'm trying to take all my, lucky enough to have all those years with Marvel and then growing up reading Marvel nonstop. So my hope is that I can use all that time and experience with the characters and share that with our partners so that when you play all the games, it feels 100% Marvel. So by that it's like all the characters you love and they're wearing the right costumes and there's all these cool variant costumes that you've seen through the years and they're speaking the way they should and acting the way they should and all the cool locations and items and powers and just bring all of that to all the games. And lucky enough to work with people like Kurt.
I'm Kurt Busick. I started writing for Marvel in 1982. And the reason I'm involved in this particular game is because it's based on two Avengers arcs that I wrote, the Kang Dynasty in Avengers and Avengers Forever, which was its own separate series. So they brought me in to consult and help out with the writing on the game and figure out more cool characters to bring in, and in the occasional places where there were characters that from the comic that couldn't be used, what can we do instead that will still feel like right. Marvel and authentic and blah blah blah. That's what I do.
Yeah, and it was fun how the connection happened. First of all, I just told Kurt this morning a few moments ago, he maybe didn't know, years ago when he was writing Thunderbolts, and I was on Marvel staff and I was friends with Tom Brevoort and Mark Zumrak, the editors of the book. Back then, people on staff would write the letters pages, and so I wrote the letters pages for Thunderbolts. And so on weekends, I would get the letters.
Excellent job. Yeah.
Thank you. I would get the letters and I'd bring them home, and it was like no email, it was all handwritten. You just, like, what is that word? Pick the right letters and put them in the order to begin with a positive letter, then maybe something negative, but then end with a good positive letter again.
That's actually how I started out, not doing the letter columns, but writing the letters.
There you go. Yeah, and it's fun when you see names of letter writers who are now in the industry. Mm-hmm. That's a lot of how people get
George R. R. Martin had a couple of letters published with Marvel.
Ralph Macchio, who's editor for 35 years, he wrote letters.
Yeah. Stephen R. Donaldson, who did the Ill-Earth War things.
So a lot of people come in that way. So I've been in around, or I've known Kurt for a long time. So when it came time to, it was Arthur and TT Games who came to us when we started talking about this game. And right away they said, we want to do something with Kang. And we're like, oh, that's awesome. So we can do all these time variants and have all these alternate timelines and locations. And we started talking about Kang, and I said, well, he can be a really tricky character. He's had many stories over the years and iterations and involvements with Marvel, and he said, what's the best stuff we can read? So we started just getting stories together and sharing it with them, and of course starting back with Stan and Jack with the Avengers stories, and then I made sure, I'm like, they gotta read Avengers Forever. It's one of my favorite stories of all time, and for me, Kurt and Carlos Pacheco, who drew it, really made me understand who Kang was, and to see him in action. We can talk about that a bit later. So, and then we also gave him your Kang Dynasty stories from Avengers, and so we gave this just a ton of material to Arthur and the gang, and he came back and he said, hey, here's the two stories that we were really focused on that really popped up to us, and those are two stories. And he's like, I wonder if we could get a Marvel writer who would help us understand Kang like this and help us connect all these things. And I said, well, I wonder if we can reach out to Kurt. Let's go to the source, and he knows it best. So we reached out and and Kurt was interested, and the rest is, as Kang would say, is history. Do you have any questions you want to go around in a circle, maybe?
Yeah, so maybe from the new characters that are added in the game, do you guys have a personal favorite?
Wow.
I do, but we got to save it for
Yeah,
the
we're going to reveal
at the end of
it.
the panel.
I'll say this. For all sorts of reasons, I love something about all of them, you know? And just the other day, I was sitting down with Tim Hernandez, who is our director of game development. He's the producer on the Marvel Games side. And we were just looking at the character unlock screen. We had everything unlocked. And we just spent like an hour just like, is that who I think it is? And because we forget, because we go back and forth for months and months and months with Arthur and the team, sharing lists. And like, what about this? Oh, that's cool. Hey, what about this character? Yeah. And we're all digging through the vault, and Kurt and everyone's suggesting stuff. And we keep going over these lists. And then, you know, it's months later, you see it in the game. And you're like, oh my gosh, there it is. And to see the characters, it's deceptively, it seems easy, but it's deceptively difficult to get a character who may have an elaborate costume and to interpret them into a minifigure, and to have to make the decision of, if we can only pick like 5 details, what is it that communicates who the character is? So it's a great chance for us to think about what makes a character visually important. Is it a symbol on their chest? Is it their color combo? Is it color blocking? And to be able to distill it down and then have it that small on the screen and be able to look at it and instantly know, even before we unlock it, who the character is. That's a great skill that I tip my hat to the team. So, and then to see them, to select them, and they all have individual moves and dialogue that we went over for months and months. To see that all in the game is great, and that's why I love them all.
Does the success of the Lego movies bump up awareness for the video game?
I mean, I would think it's everything Lego. I mean, you name it. I have an 8-year-old boy. He loves Lego. So we spend hours not only building sets and building figures, but then taking apart the figures and building our own figures. So for me, it's everything. It's the toys, it's the sets, it's their movies, it's their other games. It's everything that Lego does, I think, speaks to a certain quality and a level of imagination. So for us, you know, it's 2 things. We want to exceed what has gone before. We want to make sure that when you see that Marvel brick, when you see that, you know, we want that in games to speak to the same quality of when you see a Marvel movie, you see the Marvel brick, or a TV show like the shows on Netflix, or the comic books, or anything Marvel. When you see that brick, you know it's this agreement with us and the Marvel fans. So we're going to try our best to make this awesome. So you as a Marvel fan says, okay, I'm going to check this out. I know it's going to be good. And then on top of that, there's the Lego history to contend with and try and equal that level of excellence. So all that together is our aspiration. So that's why we try so hard to make it the best it can be.
I can't give that long an answer. So, but then again, I would assume that the success of the Lego movies is going to bring attention to anything Lego, and if the games are good, and they are, then you know that'll bring them in the door, and then the quality of the game and the play and the world and the experience is going to make them want to come back for more.
Some of my favorite Marvel comic storylines are House of M, Jim and Bottle, and Born Again. What is your favorite Marvel storyline that you have written?
That I've written?
Yes.
Marvel storyline that I've written, I would have to say Marvels. That was my big breakthrough project, and I got to use an amazing sweep of Marvel history. I got to work with Alex Ross, who did a beautiful job on the art, and a great deal of what my career has been since is because of the success of that book. So Marvel's, Avengers Forever. I mean, not to overly mentioned tie-ins with the game, but the Kang Dynasty, these were the Ultron story in Avengers. The Ultron.
Yeah, I love that one.
So good. And that would make a good game.
It would.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Lots of robots.
Yeah.
Robots are cool.
You mentioned Marvels.
I'm not sure that would make such a good game. You play a little old photographer who wanders
No,
around.
that could, but you might walking around and you're a photographer and you're trying to capture all these photos of all these, and you take you through the sweep of Marvel history. That could be a game.
Okay, you sold me.
I always, we always give Marvels to every partner we work with at the beginning, and we say, read this, because sometimes, if we are so close to it, we kind of take the majesty and how amazing the characters are. We kind of take it for granted. It kind of becomes normal to us. But in your story, through the lens of Phil Sheldon's camera, you when you look up and you see Giant Man step over you, that's amazing. And we want everyone to remember how cool and huge and larger than life, and at the same time, very human
and relatable.
all of our characters are. So that is, I can't recommend that enough. If you have not read Marvels, read it next week after the convention.
Exactly.
When you do a game, let's say based on a movie or a TV show, do you find that writing-wise it's more constricting because you have to follow a certain storyline? Or does Marvel itself give you that creative freedom to go on and create your own content?
Well, I'll say the difference between Lego Marvel Super Heroes 2 and the last Lego game we did is that was all based in the MCU. And of course, when you're working with any content from another medium, you want to be respectful to it, and you want to be authentic to what it is. And so you sort of play by the rules and the guidelines of what has been revealed or shown in either TV or film, or comics for that matter. So for this game, and actually for all the Marvel games now, our kind of philosophy is, let's not try to do an adaptation, a direct adaptation of the game of the movie, because it's so hard to do, especially when the movie or TV show is being created at the same time. So you haven't seen it all, you don't have all the ref, and they're two different mediums. We have to understand, we have to really embrace, what are we making? We're making a game. That has to come first. The game has to be fun, and we have to let the game be the game, and let a movie be a movie, TV show, or a comic. So what we do is we look at everything. We look at the movies and TV shows and comics, and we blend it all together. And we say, well, we want the characters and situations maybe to be inspired by some of this, but we also want our creators and studios like TT Games to bring their own vision to it and tell their own story and give them the freedom. So I think when you see this game, you'll see how much fun they have to bring all these characters together and have Giant Man be next to She-Hulk and be next to Rocket Raccoon and blend all these things together and have a lot of fun.
Yeah, it's. I can only speak to this one game, but I don't think that it was restrictive at all. They kind of took, to start with, those two Avengers stories we talked about and kind of mashed them together into one big structure.
Yeah.
But then on top of that, it's an Avengers-centric story, but it's a Marvel superhero story. So there's lots of other characters. There's Spider-Man and Spider-Man characters,
Yep.
the Guardians of the Galaxy. So what we did was we took the merged outline, and not only are we using that material, but I wrote it in the first place, and I was able to say, no, this scene was to set up something that we're not actually doing. So let's throw out
let's
this
take this
scene
out.
and repurpose it and send it this way.
That's great.
And we want to set this up for various interesting gameplay. So let's shift things. That all the way through. The question was, how do we take the foundation of the source material and make a really cool game out of it?
Right.
So just as when I wrote the comics, I would base it on what did Stan and Jack do, what did Steve Englehart and Dave Cockrum do, what did Roger Stern do in his runs, and how can I use what was established there to build something new? Here we were saying, here's what Kurt did with George, here's what Kurt did with Alan Davis, here's what Kurt did with Carlos Pacheco, but using it as source material, not using it as any sort of a confining outline. The end result was make a great game, and there are characters who are enormously significant to the game who don't appear in the original stories because we're making a new thing.
Anyone not answer the question yet?
Have you played video games before, Lego video games before this, or was this all new?
This was mostly new to me. My big experience with Lego video games before this was my kids coming upstairs and very quietly asking, is there a Lego Indiana Jones movie? Because they like the game so much. They wanted to see the movie of Lego Indiana Jones, which I thought was, just perfect. But no, I'm coming into this as an expert on the Marvel stuff and the Marvel material and the stories and the characters, so that I can advise them. I don't know crap about video games. Everything I've seen from it looks fantastic, but I get to be sort of the ignorant consumer's eye when it comes to the game part of it. I'm very much an outsider on that.
And that's what I loved. Is like let's bring a fresh perspective, and that's what's great with bringing together, Marvel experts, game making experts, and then a fresh perspective, and blending it all together. And that's when you create something fresh and something new, and something that works for all sorts of people. Whether you're just a Lego fan or a Lego games fan, or whether you're a Marvel fan, or whatever it is, whatever brings you to the game, with all those fresh eyes and all those points of view, then you create something that for each of those groups you can get really deep on it, and at the same time it can work for everybody.
Yeah, I like to think, this sounds a little weird, but I like to think that I got to be creatively dumb, in that I don't know how the games are supposed to work.
Sure.
So I could say, can we do a subplot?
Yeah.
Could we do this thing that's going on in the background, and you'll see hints of it here and there, and it'll play out, and they go, well, it's not the usual. Yeah, that would be fun. Hey, whoa! And maybe there's something that, because I'm thinking of it outside game terms, in pure story terms, and they're thinking of it in terms of game mechanics. We find something together that hasn't appeared before.
And sometimes it's like writing a song. Coming at it, like, we never want the story to get in the way of the gameplay. The gameplay is what must shine through. The fun that the player has, solving the challenges, going on these different environments, going on these adventures.
But the story informs the gameplay.
That's right. And then the story gives it heart. And for Marvel, everything we do is story. Everything we do is all about the characters. And so no matter what the game is, or no matter how high the stakes are or how fantastic it gets, it all comes down to who's your heroes, what do they want, what's their goal, who are the villains, the antagonists, what are their goals, what are they trying to do, and what's their motivation. Why do they feel they must do this, and why do the heroes feel they must stop them, and what is at stake, and what is our major theme. In this case, to me, there's an idea of time and Kang trying to control it and impose his will, and the great way that Kang, and Kurt knows this best, is he's this conqueror who in the future is bored and he wants to come back, and he in his mind he wants to prove himself. He doesn't just want to go back to when the Avengers are babies and beat them up. He wants to face them in their prime on the battlefield.
That's a point I like to make over and over again, is that if you're a time traveler, you can do all kinds of sneaky things, but Kang doesn't want to do sneaky things, because Kang, he wants to be the biggest, best badass in the universe, and the way you do that is you beat powerful guys
at their prime.
So somebody like Immortus, who's a scholar and a clever schemer, he might come up with the idea, I'll arrange things so that Don Blake flunks out of medical school and never becomes a doctor, and then he'll never find out that he's really poor. Ha ha ha! I won. And Kang's reaction to that was, "Where's the fight?"
Yeah.
Kang wants to go up against the Avengers at their most powerful, and still beat them.
But at the same time, because he's a villain, he does cheat a bit with his weapons from the future, you know, and his armies that he captures, so that he throws at you, you know, Vikings and cavemen and robots.
But that's what he's got.
Right, that's
Thor's
true.
got his hammer,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
Iron Man's got his armor,
All right,
and
all
so
right,
it's
fair
just
enough,
like,
fair enough.
you know, Kang wants to beat the Yankees.
And what I loved about Avengers Forever is that's one of the first times I saw Kang like in the battlefield, waiting in the battle with his big crazy guns, and like he's this future like Genghis Khan. He's gonna he's gonna lead the
That's
charge.
where the name comes from.
There you go. Oh, does it?
Yeah.
Kang Khan?
Yeah.
Should have known that. You heard it here first, true believers.
What kind of locations do we expect to see in the game?
All of them.
Very good question. So, at the center of the game is this hub world, Kanopolis, which again comes from the comics.
Yeah, but Mark Grunwald in this case.
And they drew a great map of it. And Mark was he was so great. He loved to get into the nitty gritty of Marvel and the history of Marvel and explain how everything worked. And he was behind the whole handbook of the Marvel Universe. And he just thrived on all these facts and the history of Marvel.
But Kanopolis, you know, imagine like Disney World has the Cinderella Castle in the middle and it has the parks around it.
Yeah.
Kanopolis has Kang's Citadel in the middle, and around it are all these different time zones. So the Old West is here, and Marvel New York is here, and there's like the Kree homeworld. There's a piece of that, and there's a 2099 neighborhood. So Kanopolis is a city made up of different fragments of place and time that Kang has conquered. So his whole empire is spread out below his castle, and the characters get to play through the various locations looking for what they need to take on Kang directly.
And it's so fun, like as you go through and lock them, and a great thrill is to, if you have a character who can fly, to go above and fly around and look down at all the locations. And because they're all together, there's not a wait of, oh, now I got to wait this long time to get, you know, from ancient Egypt to medieval England to Marvel, like Manhattan 2099 or the Hydra or Marvel Noir. It's all together. And so to instantly travel from one location, say it's Marvel 2099, all bright and neon and crazy, and then to go into Marvel Noir and it's black and white. It's brilliant. And to make that transition, and the music changes, cars change, lampposts change, cars aren't flying anymore, they're down on the street. It's so fun, and you can't get it in any other game. It's fantastic.
So it comes to creating, I had the opportunity to play, and it's massive, and it's amazing.
Cool.
But my thing is, when creating it, which comes first? Is it the story that you want to tell that happens to have these characters, or you start with, oh, I want a story about these characters that you have in mind?
I think he described it a little earlier. In this particular case, they like the idea of Kang because Kang's got time travel, and time travel opens up a lot of possibilities, and having all of those possibilities suggests good gameplay. So then the next step is, let's look at Kang, let's look at all of the various stories, and I'm not gonna, I'm not gonna say, oh, they picked two of my stories because I'm the best. They picked the two stories because Avengers Forever involves a lot of different time zones and places and versions of characters, and Kang Dynasty involves even more. So that they looked at those stories and they said, there are a lot of opportunities for gameplay here. Whereas Kang's second appearance, when Stan Lee and Don Heck were doing the Avengers, is a two-part story in which Kang is trying to conquer this one particular futuristic kingdom. It's got one setting. It's got one conflict. You look at that and go, that might make a piece of a game, but not a whole game. So as they're going on, they start from, here's a character we think would make for a good game. Research the stories. Here are stories that we think would lend themselves to a good game. then let's take the stories and let's work with the structure and see how we can build the structure so that it has lots of interesting gameplay. At every stage, they're asking both of those questions.
Right.
Is it a good story? Is it a good game?
Right.
So it's not like you start with one and staple the other one on.
Yeah.
You start with a question, and then you start to answer the question and build bigger and bigger and bigger from the, at each stage going, will this be good for a game, and will this be a good story?
So when do you find the balance between we have enough but we need a little bit more? Because it's so
We always want more. We always want more.
Yep.
And as Kurt said, he's exactly right. It's a bit like writing a song. It's music and lyrics. What comes first? Sometimes it's music or a melody, and then words get added. Sometimes people will begin with words and do the melody. And it's the same way. We started with when they suggested Kang, and then we found the Kanopolis. That was great to see all the locations. And then we just started lists. We just started nerding out. Just like locations, what's been done, what hasn't been done, what characters could be in those different locations, and then wait a minute, how does Kanopolis form? Then we get into the story of it all, and what is Kang, and what's he about, and how do we weave it in a way so that if you don't know what a Kang is, when you play the game, you understand very quickly what he's about, and then we use the story to lead you to the game. So it's a bit of both. It's at the same time. Ultimately, what's the best fun, awesome game? But at the same time, what's a cool story we can tell? And then, just as fans, how can we pack it full of all this cool stuff? And we always want more.
Seriously, I will attest that the way you know you have enough in this particular case is you've got to deliver the game to the stores. So at some point, you have to stop adding stuff. There's stuff in this game that wasn't in the game when we did a panel at San Diego about the game. And at San Diego, I found out stuff that had been added to the game since after I had done the last of my work on it. They're seriously, when he says we always want more, he's not kidding around. They're just going, hey, we can add this bit, we can add this bit. One of the advantages, with comics, if we've got 20 pages to tell the story, we're limited by that. Gameplay is fractal. You can spend 10 minutes on a section. You can spend 14 hours on a section, and you'll just there's more incident, there's more fun, but the ability to wander around in that world creates opportunities that you don't have with something that's as linear as a movie or a comic book or a novel. So you can always put in more details, more stuff, more. If they had another year to work on the game, they could put twice as many characters in. The structure would still be the same, but you'd just have more world to interact with and play with.
I'm going to rotate so everyone has an opportunity. I think it'd be easy if we just move you two instead of moving on.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you all. Appreciate it. Thanks for coming.
So for those of you that came in,
So, here to answer your questions. Ask away.
Jacket, Kurt, as a resource. How amazing was that?
That was super cool, and it came about from just a phone call. We were on the phone because I probably speak to Bill once, twice a week, and we were talking about that. This was way back in the early days. We were talking about the story, and we wanted to write a story that was, inspired by Adventures Forever and the Kang Dynasty, two of the best Kang-related comic arcs there are. And we were chatting, it'd be great to get a comic book writer involved, and who should we do? And we would go around for ages and ages, and then Bill just went, we should probably just ask Kurt. I was like, yeah, we probably should. It was just like that sort of like light bulb moment that we'd just kind of not even thought about. Got in touch with Kurt, and Kurt's like, yeah, cool. I love Kang. I love everything about the story of Kang. I can Kang you till the end of time, and it was great. So obviously writing what we wanted to do in terms of, we want this great adventure, we want to visit these locations with these characters and do these cool things. and then for Kurt to help mold that and give it that almost that rubber stamp of Marvel authenticity. This is an authentic Kang story. This is Vona is authentic, Terminatrix is authentic, and everything else in between, Forever Crystals, Nexus fragments, etc. Super cool. So yeah, it was great. I'm a big fan of Kurt as well.
Do you have a favorite character that was added for this entry of the series?
There are probably too many. I don't know if you'll agree, Justin, because obviously Justin has to look at them as if they were to be made as real toys. Spider-Ham is super cool. I don't quite know how that's obviously a new element, but
but it's Lego legal, you can make it.
yeah, absolutely. But yeah, I like quirky characters. I like things like Forbushman. I like Throg. I like, Cosmo. He's not really. He's more mainstream, and as is Lockjaw. But I like the weird and wacky and wonderful characters. Hellcow, for example, which is just like an awesome character. I kind of like those as well as the your She-Hulks and your Miss Marvels and everything else. But the weird and wacky are where there's most fun to be had, because that is bringing a character from nothingness into the forefront of people's minds, really, because kids are playing this and some kids won't even know who Howard the Duck is, like, still, even though he's had a resurgence thanks to Lego Marvel Super Heroes 1 and not James 1. But yeah, bringing these characters in, people are then going to be able to see them and play them and then experience why they're great.
What's the process for deciding on which characters to bring into the game?
We were just talking about that just before. There's probably like 10 different things that kind of influence that. Obviously, you've got the story we want to tell is super important. The play materials that Justin and his team in Billund are looking at making is also really important from our standpoint, because we want to make sure they are in the game. We don't want people to go and buy a playset and not be able to experience that digitally, and vice versa. We want that crossover. We have the ones that just randomly we want in the game because we're fans. Bill is the world's worst for phoning me up and adding characters. Because he'll go to like an editorial something, this is going to be this really cool thing in the comics, and this character's going to do this and this and this. Can we get this guy in the game? It's like, Bill kind of finished. It's like, we call time on the numbers, and he's like, but come on, please. And it's like, okay, all right, I'll go and just pull some favors from my hard-working character team and animation team, and then then we get someone else added and someone else added. So there's loads. Social media is a great one. I probably got asked for Darkhawk about 9 million times. Bizarrely, I get asked for so many characters, and then some people they'll ask me about a character, and it's like really out there, as though it's like the most mainstream. It's like they're asking for Iron Man, this character that no one has heard of, and they want this one. So yeah, we get asked by all sorts, and then we also do research. I actually got to read more comics on this game than ever before, learning about Egyptian Avengers, medieval English Avengers. There's cool stuff in this game.
So, on the end of adding characters, are there any planned additional character packs for this game, or not yet?
Yeah. It's, again, obviously Marvel is cool. Everything in Marvel's cool. Comics, TV series, movies, everything. So we've got a game that we're pretty much just wrapped up, and we've got a season pass planned, which we just started work on. We've done 3 character packs that are available at launch. So there's the Retro Guardians. So if anyone knows the Guardians before they were famous, you got Charlie 27 and Martin X and Proper Yondu and some other characters. We've also got an Out of Time pack which has cool variants of characters. There's Hulk 2099, Iron Man 2020. Just remember, there's a few others in there. They might be main game. There's about 8 in there. Agents of Atlas, if you know Agents of Atlas, Gorilla Man, and a few other characters. And then the kind of meat of the season pass is there's 6 level packs. There's one inspired by Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, which is the first one that will be out, which is incredible. There is one that's inspired by Black Panther. There's one that's inspired by Infinity War. One that's inspired by Ant-Man and the Wasp, and then there's also a Runaways and Cloak and Dagger pack. So, but no one knows that information yet. You're the first to know. I've had to keep really quiet about that for ages, but apparently I'm allowed to talk about everything now, which is good. And there's a Champions character pack as well. So,
On the design aspect, what parts are from fan feedback that you included in the sequel?
lots. But I don't think people really. I don't know. You guys probably do the same, right? When we release something, when we release a game, we will go through every review, every forum, every moan, groan, gripe, every bit of praise, every YouTube video, every comment on YouTube videos, and we go through all of that information. We also have some great statistics that come through from surveys that we do, that our colleagues at LEGO do, and we analyse everything that people say that's good, bad, indifferent, and we try and address it. So, you know, while yes, I might just get someone that just tweets me and goes, "Hey, can we just do this?" It's like, well, that's one way, but we also see the stuff that people don't necessarily think we'll see. You know, when people are on Reddit and there's just loads of information there, we'll go through, we analyse everything, and then we look at it and go, right, here's a game that we want to make. Let's just make sure that that's the game that people are going to want to pay their hard-earned money for and play. So I don't think there's any element of the game that hasn't been affected by what fans of the game want. You know, probably the thing that's been most affected is probably the open world and the customizer, because we've had customizers before, and you'll stick Iron Man's helmet on, and that's what gives your character you've made Iron Man's abilities. And it's like, well, they don't want to do that. They want to have full customization. So now that's what we've done from the ground up. I can put Spider-Man's head on, and I can change the colour to be pink. I can put green hair on and a cape, and then I can make him have an ice beam out of his eyes, and he can hold a big axe in one hand and a sword in the other hand that shoots repulsor beams, and you know, it just goes crazy. And that's come from fan feedback, because they're the characters that people want to create. They want to experience our story, you know, enjoy everything we've given them, and then when they finish that, keep playing, but with their own creations. So there's a lot of work gone into that.
Is there any Marvel storylines you would like to see in the game that's not in the game?
There's one, but I can't say because I'm still talking to Bill about that. Because we may well just shoehorn that in, like if we find time next year sometime. But no, not really. So myself and the design team read comics as much as we can, and so we are reading pretty much everything just to make sure that everything's relevant. So even stuff that, you know, I try and be knowledgeable about most things, but obviously when it comes to things like Runaways and Cloak and Dagger, that's not my thing as much, so I'm enjoying reading up about those. A couple of my team are doing the same. But no, we want to chuck everything in there. You know, you look at Thor Ragnarok, I look at that and think it's inspired by Planet Hulk. We have got a Planet Hulk inspired level in the game, which is cool. You turn up in Nycc. There are 4 or 5 Hulks there from different time periods, and you have to save Hulk. You have to take off his power disc and then fight Red King and other stuff, and then basically bring Hulk back into the fold so you can go off and do something else. And it's cool. There's so many things, and I think as people play the game, they'll see these little nods to all these storylines from TV, you know, comics.
Between all the movies and the comics and the TV shows, is it difficult to balance expectations when you're Legoizing characters from all these different materials? Balancing expectations from fans?
I mean, all the characters that are designed for the game are designed by in the way that you can sort of, if we were to produce them as Lego for minifigures, then you could do that. So they've all been stylized in the Lego way, in the most accurate way as well.
I mean, in personality wise.
Oh, in personality wise.
Yeah, well, personalities is what makes the Lego games what they are. You know, I think you can take anything, and if you put that into a minifigure, it looks cool. Like, there is something adorable and collectible about any minifigure. And so for me, it doesn't matter. If you've got like some pretty serious bad guys in there, you know, someone, I don't know, like Ronin's pretty bad, or you've got Blade, he's pretty bad, but they still look really cool as a minifigure. And that's the great thing. A Lego video game gives us the ability to take anything, shrink it down into something that is just incredibly, I need to have minifigures sometimes. I have loads, but I always see a new one and it's like, I've got to have this one. Like Baby Groot, the Ravager one, I had to have that. I had to have that set just to have the alternate version of Baby Groot. But we can shrink these down into minifigures, put them in the game, and then bring them to life however we want. And that's the great thing about you'll play Star-Lord, and you'll have an expectation level. You'll expect him to be kind of cool and almost like a bit kind of like no holds barred. He doesn't really plan anything, just like I go straight into action and all that. So we'll give you that, but then we'll also give you the personality of he can put his mixtape on and he can listen to Mr. Blue Sky, he can listen to Redbone, he can throw Gravity Mines and all the rest of it. But we'll do that for everyone. So even someone you don't really know, like King Arthur Pendragon, or Nathan Garrett Black Knight, or Spider-Ham, or some of the more obscure people like Throg, they will all have their own personality, and they'll all give you something as you play. So if you know that character and you're a fan of them, you'll be like, I can't believe they've done whatever it is. We want to make sure that every character has personality. Just like the physical toy has personality. When if you've got it, you imagine there's a personality in that toy, or I always do. I mean, maybe I'm just a little bit crazy, but you kind of imagine how that character would move and talk and act and what they would do. And it goes back to sitting in this like 70s and early 80s with all my Lego on the floor, playing out scenes and doing things in my head. It's about imagination, but we're kind of imagining for people, I guess.
How hard was it to get the licensings for the music that's in the game, especially for Storyline?
It's not, I don't think it's necessarily hard. It's more a case of us identifying what music we want. You could sit there and go, you know what, James Gunn's done all our work for us. Let's just get all of that soundtrack and all of that soundtrack and all that. But it's about how you use the music. I find in video games, I find you can do an awful lot more with original compositions, that kind of are thematic. Yes, if you've got a specific theme that you want, it's gonna strike a certain vibe. So we open the game with Redbone. It gives it that instant vibe of like, yeah, okay, I'm in there. This is cool. And then occasionally we throw in the odd like riff from something licensed throughout the game. But if you've got a level, for example, where you want it to be a little bit spooky at first, and then you want a kind of a high-tempo action-packed sequence, and then you want something a little bit light-hearted, and then you want to really like hit people hard with a boss fight, you can't kind of get that with a licensed track. You've got to go and get original composition, bring in a big orchestra, throw lots at it. But the licensed stuff kind of just supplements things here and there. So it's not difficult. It's about the choices we make in the music we want to kind of use, if that makes sense.
I know this is maybe a long shot, but will we see Hail Hydra Captain America in the game?
Just trying to run through who we've got. There's a whole section of the game that takes place in the Hydra Empire, which is obviously, as you know, Manhattan if Hydra won. I'm just working through who's in there. Tactical Force, Bowman, a few other. I can't remember off the top of my head. You have to wait and play it.
You have to play it, yeah, exactly.
I'm still, There's that many characters. I can't remember who we have talked about and who we haven't. But there is an awesome section in the story there, and there's also a really awesome Gwenpool mission in that same kind of Hydra like time period, which is really funny. So I'm sure you'll enjoy that.
Also, what was your reaction when you first saw Captain America going Hydra?
I kind of expected it. It's one of those things. It's like, where can they go next? It's like, okay, yeah, I can see that. and it's good. I like those constant twists and turns in comics. It keeps it exciting and interesting, and yeah, I like seeing where things are going to go next. So that was a good one.
So Kurt was saying that he came into this with little to no experience in video games, especially. So he was also saying that he was coming at you with all kinds of ideas that you were kind of like, all right, we've never tried that. But can you think of anything really that he brought that is something new to the Lego video games?
Yeah. So he brought. We were saying before on the other table, like time travel itself and explaining time travel and trying to make that understandable to potentially someone who is playing their first ever video game, that's hard. Time travel is, as someone who watches Doctor Who, it's difficult to get your head around sometimes. But what Kurt has brought is kind of a way of telling stories that we don't normally have in Lego games. Normally we'll, what do we want to do? Okay, yeah, we're going to do this thing where all the bad guys are there and they've all escaped from somewhere and we're going to track them down, and then right at the very end they're all going to team up and do this thing. That isn't a great story. What Kurt brought is a really strong story that has twists and turns and unexpected things. And in this particular story, there are a couple of unexpected events that kind of throw things on their head, and it's like playing a comic. That's how cool it is. Something I absolutely adore about some of Kurt's comics. When you go to the next next book, you have that kind of almost flashback moment of meanwhile, or while you're away this was occurring, and then you're just shooting from one bit to another. And so that's where the non-linear story came from, is you've got this start and end, but in the middle, can we let people kind of do their own thing? Can I go to Wakanda and do that bit, or could I go here and do that bit? It's like, yeah, they could. But we'll keep the story running through and keep the threads active, and also have those kind of almost red herrings. I'm going here for a reason. Oh no, didn't really need to do that. We're going to go here, and the way that you bring characters in and out is something that we didn't have. And I think Kurt's brought that to us, and also a cool twist at the end of the story, which it's not a Sixth Sense moment, but it's a very, very cool twist that I think people are going to be, as they're kind of playing the game, they won't be expecting it, and then there's just this awesome twist, and then everything gets turned on its head, and then it kind of makes sense with a bit in the post credits and some other stuff, and it's just great. It's great to have a brilliant storyteller work with us to really make the best story we possibly can. And I think, if I'm honest, as much as I enjoyed making Lego Marvel Superheroes, and as much as I think most people enjoyed playing it, the story could have been stronger, and bringing Kurt in kind of reinforces moving Lego Marvel Superheroes 2 forward in every area, if that makes sense.
You talked a little bit about the sort of style and personality of the characters. Obviously Telltale has a very distinct style when you look at their games. How do you feel that the Lego games fit in to the Telltale universe, and how different it is? Is that a struggle with the team?
I had this on Twitch yesterday. Traveller's Tales, Telltale, are slight. We're different. Telltale are super narrative, Walking Dead and everything else, and we're all Lego games. So I'll dodge that one.
So after doing the first Lego Marvel Superheroes, you guys then went and did Lego Avengers.
Yep.
Why did you guys decide to then go back with Lego Marvel Superheroes 2 instead of continuing the Avengers line, or doing, I don't know, Lego Guardians of the Galaxy or something?
So when we finished Lego Marvel Superheroes, we always wanted to make Lego Marvel Superheroes 2. There is a post-credits scene right at the end where you've just saved the world, and Nick Fury's there, and you're all in front of the Statue of Liberty, and then the Guardians of the Galaxy rock up, and that was before Guardians of the Galaxy the movie as well. So before the Guardians were famous, they rocked up, and then so Nick Fury's like, "What are you here for? You're too late." And Star-Lord says, that's not why we're here, there's something else. Because we knew where we wanted to go with the game. And then we made Lego Marvel's Avengers, just because there was a great opportunity to make that game based on the cinematic universe. But we always knew we'd come back to Lego Marvel Superheroes because there is an unfinished story. And I think when people get to the end of this game, and they see post credits, they can kind of make their own minds up about where it finishes.
Lego Marvel Superheroes 2 clearly draws from both like comic books and the MCU, which have very different like personalities to them. How do you find the balance between the two?
I think that's where like Justin's employer comes in. Lego is that middling thing. It's everything in Lego is fun and entertaining. And so you can have your movie, you can have your classic comic book, but the minute that you bring them into that one style, which is what Lego allows us, everything's the same. And I think that's where you've got Peter Parker Spider-Man, you've got Spider-Man Homecoming, and then you bring that in with someone like Spider-Man Noir, and you kind of bring that in with some like awesome sort of Spider-Gwen. That's all the same all of a sudden, and it's almost like a stylistic thing. Lego to me says fun. Lego to me says immersion, and it also says to me authenticity. And those three things are what we do with the video game, and the same with the play materials. And I think it is that leveler. You can have Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. stuff right alongside classic Kirby stuff, right alongside future movie stuff, because it all makes sense. It's all in that one gorgeous universe.
And that's the great thing. Sorry, just to add on to that. That's the great thing that TT does. Is it's much like playing with Lego. You can pour out all the Lego on the floor, and you can just put random bits together. It doesn't need to fully make sense, like because it's an MCU or a comic. It just works.
Yeah, it is that thing, and you'll see when you play the game. Star-Lord is actually in his MCU outfit, but it doesn't mean that he's just MCU Star-Lord, because he has the personality of Star-Lord from comics pre-Guardians and post-Guardians, as well as from the movies. So, and most of the characters have nods to everything, assuming that they're characters that have got sort of appearances in everything.
If this game were to come up for PC, would there be any mod support?
The first game came out for PC, right? And you think it's like no one's going to do anything to it, but somehow people were putting their own textures in and making their own characters and doing their own thing, and which is great and weird and wonderful. But from us personally, we don't necessarily support it from the modding community. I don't know why not. Probably because we don't expect it to be modded. Don't forget our target audience is 6 to 12-year-olds, and if those guys are into modding, then someone from NASA or someone needs to probably sign them up.
Did you find developing for Switch any different because it's inherently can have a co-op experience with the 2 Joy-Cons that it comes with, or any other reason?
Well, Switch is awesome because, and I was saying this before, I'm a massive advocate of the Switch. I love the Switch. The fact I can play real console games on the go is amazing, and the fact that I can do work on the go is amazing, because I can actually review content and play content on the go. But the Switch to me, there's not enough games that allow you to play them in multiplayer out of the box. Yes, I can play Mario Kart, but a lot of games that I need to go and pay $80 for an extra pair of Joy-Cons or a Pro Controller or whatever. So we, at the very start, said, right, no, we all love the Switch because there's a few of us that do. We need to make this so you can play with just a single Joy-Con. So you can play 2-player with just the Switch as it comes. So if someone's bought a Switch at Christmas and Lego Marvel Superheroes 2, they can play it co-op, just one little tiny Joy-Con each, which is really cool. And which you might think, well, hold on, that's really small, and in my big adult hands that aren't like child's hands, is that going to work? It's really comfortable, and it is. It kind of takes me back a little bit to when I was a kid playing video games with, I know SNES and Mega Drives, the controls weren't that small, but it's that cool simplicity of there's not very many buttons, but I can do everything I want with the characters I want on the screen. So yeah, the Switch version is actually awesome. and no different to the PS4.
Will the season pass still also come to the Switch as
Yeah.
well? Okay.
Yeah. Any other questions, anyone?
You're still having fun?
I can't believe you two are quiet. You guys are never quiet.
Everybody does that.
Yeah, that was actually, I was about to ask that question.
Oh, yeah.
About
Okay.
the Switch.
No, because the Switch is just. I think a lot of people thought that the Switch wasn't as powerful as it was. It is actually such a powerful machine. We are playing the game exactly as it is. This huge open world of Kanopolis, 200 plus characters, doing everything you want. The load times are just like non-existent. You're just like quickly switching between characters, everything you want. Full customization still there, and you can take it on the go.
I think it's really important how you were saying like there are like no games aside from like Mario Kart that let you do that with just the little controllers. So like when you're
Snipper
going,
Clips does, but, which is an awesome game.
So much fun.
Yeah.
We're going to wrap up, so maybe one final question, and also we go.
What are the special features for the Switch version? Can you link up like 4 of them for multiplayer or something like that?
No, we didn't get around to that. So there is a 4-player multiplayer mode in the game, Battle Arena mode, or Grandmaster mode as we've termed it and called it. But that is not. You can't link up 4 switches. I don't think we had the machines long enough to be able to figure that out. So, but the 4-player mode is there, and that's on all formats. And in case you didn't know, the game's out November 14th. So hopefully everyone will really enjoy it.
Thanks so much.
Cheers, thank you.